So last we met, we were talking about position. We were talking about these visual aids and the use of position or conceptual map, excuse me, campus, or strategy campus. So they differ on style, purpose, they're much the same. Help us to determine whether the give us an understanding close to a corporation or to a this is one I want to say with is one of, as I said before, I'm looking at not X, Y quadrant, and in these already popular, affordable and practical is high on them. Conservative and affordable. Upper left conservative. I am doing typo kind that are particularly try to come up place close. Then what we can visually say is, no, we've got to find a way. Or because they have their own segments. So your decision always, where do you want to be? Another part of that solution have. So this is a hypothetical automotive markets strategy. About this, if we status quo, then very little here. Action lounge area. Those are the things. Or try to do some. Of course, okay, but I might of a website try to put myself that offering. All of these also be. I have announced. By the way, on a Barnes and Noble solution, they start to pair with universities. So I don't know if you've heard this in the one of the things that they ever you do best, rent the rest. core function of what everything on the business work at. Other things don't really have time. Somebody else to do it, but it has advantages. If we ever wanted to turn our commissary, our cafeteria over to the group, that particular cafeteria group would have a distinct right to serve. That would be an advantage. In universities across the nation, Barnes and Noble is running their bookstores. The answer you can ask yourself is, why doesn't App State do this? App State doesn't do it. Library of be that local or important. Way they're right, because one of the race always do is they dedicate a lot of the goods that they have coming from farmers that are local. So that's one of the ways which they can make unique and different, and that is that differentiation. Recognize category membership. Look at the points that says wrong in this particular category. But what we also want to say is how do we make first way and the most, I would even go as far as to say identify and create it almost at the same time you identify, have to have some cohesion. The brand is the reason why your Apple have a certain fire with Apple. So what other ways different? Well, we look at the products themselves. What we try to do is get those things that are considered equipment. Remember when we talk about the product itself, and we look at those. So first have what is known as the, which are the descriptors of the product itself and what character bring. And then what we do is we talk about the characteristics, how those products behave, and how they make them others out. So to give you an example, turn back to the book, example of product descriptors, the basis of the advantages items have, and then ultimately benefit. Encapsulation, all of the advantages. There. Ever heard? Fascinating thing. 2008, Jobs comes out as processor, focus, and now on use processors. i3s, the i5s to the i7s, Apple has just come out with their new product line of processors, but there's a distinct advantage that the Intel processors of the Mac have the same. Problem. Don't need to use software to programs on Windows programs. Also know that on your PC, there's a program out there. Oh, gosh. I'll bring it in. It actually has a little fun MacBook apps inside your PC. I'll bring it. Awesome. So I have to take ultimate mobility. That was another great. So Tesla Model 3, full motor, all-wheel drive, long battery life, enhanced performance. Only select a size paper. Put into different sizes, benefits, more control, reduced cost. So this is the lexicon of scripter. Art, physical, with the descriptions of what inside the product. How does that relate? So remember that the benefits are the positive outcome from the advantages. Those advantages ultimately. What if it's impossible to separate our all else is equal, customer support may be the best way. Talked a little bit about this, or when Lexus first came on the market. One of them was Lexus was Acura. So coming out with a major like that, especially when you're talking about equipment, always that whatever damage reputation of one model may ultimately over to. So that happens. Best way to override that is to Starbucks only yours. Don't carry any baggage of Starbucks. Everything from editor that will be able to without. So, Lexus. First time Lexus came out, it was with a 3-year, 1,000-mile free oil changes. About this. So let's do the parts of an oil. Oh, how much? That's just the parts, the really Lexus fairly Lexus when they entirely different body construction had that is holes in. That is one of the 1,000 miles happens in alloy steel. Oil is fast. Evaporates. Second thing you do, tunnel, I'm not. You plug in module, okay, the module that is in the car, all of the data of that Lexus. Now think about 1,000 cars. 50,000 cars now have 1,000 miles. All of the roadside information last have been rolling. How goes upstream over 15 failures. That is the major reason why you do that, and this is what made Lexus so unbelievably successful. Because when Lexus came out, they were trying to crack a very big market, luxury automobile market, plus the sporty luxury, which Mercedes, BMW, Cadillac had not gotten their legs yet, but just because they were unique, right? They okay. The basis of differentiation. So, what are the position strategies? If you feel good, we're going to strengthen them. Monitor customer expectations. Toyota, I'm going to make a center console that you can iPad in. Toyota says, oh, I'm the Highlander. Yeah, I've got one of those automatic up. What happens when people pile stuff against the back? If the gate opens, everything falls out. You know what I'll do? I could do either one. Like, focus on the brand, the brand loyalty, continue down that road, and you make it simply impossible for you. However, prove that you on. Some brands they find valuable, some things. Entire generation that was devoted around this position, it isn't cool anymore. Got to find a way to get that. So, got two examples. This thing called repositioning. Repositioning is when you fundamentally change position product in the consumer's mind relative to the or maybe even up with the competition. Category membership had an original product split away from you on your product back to the category. So our market has changed. You'll find so Cadillac was known as lines of automobiles. When John and Horace Godd helped Ford build the Model T, Dodge trucks, the oh gosh, head of the corporation decided we have to do because the Dodge brothers aren't here to engineer cars, and they up the engineering. Another brand, they named this brand legendary Cadillac. Cadillac brand basically became number one top engineered states. On into the 60s, what happened was engineering also became equated with luxury. And so what happened was luxury and identifier for Cadillac, number one thing versus engineering. But even eventually that fades away. So what luxury started to mean was a model that in essence was entrenched. These find in this commercial where Cadillac is at it.
Fortunately, tennis isn't my best game. But this, I do know something about. Getting around the country in comfort and style, for me, that has to be a Cadillac. You know, I really like what they've done for this Eldorado for 1950. New instrument panel. I like the way it looks and the way it organizes things. But for me, the real pleasure in this car is in driving. The engine advancements, kind of performance, start to stop. I like the traction and stability of front wheel drive. I don't know how they do it year after year. But for me, Cadillac, America's number one luxury car. If you agree with me that second best isn't good enough, why not go see your authorized Cadillac dealer? Life is too short to put it off for long.
My uncle, my sticker on car, so everybody could look at how much car, yeah, that kind of guy. But anyway, this was probably the zenith of where these land yachts. I mean, I think she could see 8 in this. But we'd reached probably the end of luxury, because you started to see in the 70s and then started to see the performance become. Never forget the pony cars, road runners, all of those cars are there. Performance became so desired that performance need to reach in every car regardless. At this time, cost saving. They were doing body control, but a body for a vehicle that all 4 of the division, Chevrolet, big, actually had one body, all of the GM models. Kind of successful, little successful. Cadillac was built on. Look at it, it's a Cadillac, but it's Chevrolet. And at that point, Cadillac started to go through a free, had to decide whether they were going to totally and find their way back to what made Cadillac originally great. And so they threw everything away. They started making vehicles. 2003, they relaunched. So commercial itself shows movement of Cadillac from a great history further, about a decade, Cadillac up there. Crisis again. This one. So Mountain Dew has had a long rich. Mountain Dew's kind of because Mountain Dew said before. This is one of the original launching commercials. And Little mountain. So, there's actually been a new burn. They've got the mountain. Now, they always had good taste. By the way, Mountain Dew, twice the sugar, carbonation. So, bought by another umbrella, and Pepsi said, well, we're gonna try to change. So what you found in the nineties, the Mountain Dew did away with their commercials and started sponsoring. So all of the things that, all the other things, major sponsors, about 5 years. Then they started, kind of one of the examples. Successful, um, redefined, out of where they are. So, positioning,
First thing,
where the consumer find the attributes, how those turn. Last thing we have to discuss is that to realize nineteen marketing professor by the name of George Day defined and determined a theoretical idea was that products, very much like human beings, have a life cycle. Lived, grew, and in some cases passed away or died. And what he said, though, however, that based upon where and either press the brand, come up with a strategy based upon what you do, whether it's old. Product life cycle is one of those things. Have we ever proved have several different permit in certain, but we accept the product life cycle especially know that it doesn't always work, but we know it. So most products never get past the development. Most successful products never die. And generally they refer to the products in necessary brand that we use it. It is a useful way to plan our market strategy. So helps us also to consider, allows us to understand our limitations. Just realize that the length of the stage also on the so this is target. That doesn't mean we need to abandon target. No, absolutely not. Means that we need to. Without further ado, let me bring up the product life cycle. My best to kind of drawing to work from. So let's see, we have development stage, yeah, the introduction, growth. Development stage actually is one. Growth maturity. But you'll see also there'll be two lines. One of these is going to profits. This generally is dollars. Right. Find exact. And many. All of this. Some things like on the way, I had 40 of them in my. So, you know, some things, as I said, never go away. But it's important to understand. So, the development stage, very first one, when the product is being conceived, there are no sales reps. They're trying to understand there's uses. We're starting to describe the product itself. Usually what you're looking about in terms of marketing, trying to understand the product, there may be features that you might add, way. Cell phone came out. Okay. One of the other things that was text message. Ironically, text message focus for the cell phones. Along of thinking of that particular product, we're also thinking product line. Along with the phone, have texting, because there are little computer chips in there. Other thing, now all of a sudden we're starting genre where the phones are being used more than just phone calls, usually them actually. So we test the market, we see how well it's going to do, and then we start launching into the production phase. Now the introduction phase of an innovation always can be dynamic. development of a touch. First cell phone had a large mouth, had a earbud against a front part would flip open so you could just like a telephone. On, the phone got smaller and smaller, and then they oh. Marketing strategy right now is to attract customers, try to induce customers to buy the gain in other education. So, talked about Nintendo. So, Nintendo Wii is 6 bankruptcy. So, it was 6 months for bankruptcy. Yes, the consumer got to make a bang. Also got to introduce Nintendo to where it makes it. Not only that, they've got to be able to stay. I may triple the audience that I have. But that commercial. Brilliant.
He would like. He would like. He would like.
That is so hard, right to the point. Got it. And that is perfect product launch. 3 years, this is how you launch. Educate. Number one things in the introduction stage, introduction, educated you. So, how to induce people to try, how to engage in it, how to attract customers, it did all of those three. Nintendo, no one, production stage, crazy, started to see in the growth stage, start to expand the supply chain, growing fast, want to be able to visibly be able to grow, create promotions, pricing objectives, which is take and market, but now coupling they're developing in with the X5, and this is ultimately when you so the profits are expanding. What happens also is bought their first buying extras and add-ons to go along. How long it lasts, it depends on the product, competitive reactions in it. Some of them did not want to follow Wii because there's another advantage that we have. Nintendo, that none of them else have. It's got the software library. Other thing that Nintendo does that the others have downward compatibility. Play on a Switch. That's one of the. What do? We sensible marketing position. Talk about ourselves. Building them. Talk about our ability as time. Those individuals bought it from us before, be able to play them. Instead of acquiring customers, loyalty. Well, fun has been else. Good reasons as the original payback went. So the growth stage happens, profits expand rapidly. Happens also as number of competitors start increasing, start to have differentiation, do things that make them separate. Then ultimately what happens, moving with the growth. Leverage those different. So Xbox talks about their kinetic. Nintendo does talk about their way to play Mario Kart. The best to maintain product quality because also where the post leverage those different about the Wii started with the kinetic first. Also where you try to expand manufacturing so that you can find everywhere. Also where the economies of scale should finally really be kicking. And so what you'll also try to do, prices. I ever hear the Laffer curve, perfect equilibrium, price of a good, sideways bell curve. That particular- Trying to find it. This is where also, like the Nintendo Switch, started doing things right. OLED, start to create different models, come up with unique, expensive. Always got your eye on the competition. Well, here's the problem. Have competition. Not cash. Starting to think market share, profits. Always perceive direct relation, quality and price. Especially important. So we look at create the profits. Market share that we things that I was saying, rising competition. No longer looking many times at the description, advantages. Also have things like quality, price, the image. Still have a Nintendo Wii. Technology is still pretty remarkable. But of course, one of the things that makes the Wii different from the Xbox and from PlayStation, that they whereas Nintendo focused on breakout period is coming because your competition's catching up, differentiation starting to squeeze because you're in a market to the curve phase, finding at this is the longest stage. Some unique market. But they have to haven't seen anything cell phone industry other than I've seen old phones, which I but generally if you look at the insides are the things the higher resolution, other differences. But there are, like I said, opportunities for variations. Variations are not there to grow or to capture a market share. And this is also when you start to see ways that there are some competitors that are no longer able at so things that you can do, goals that you can manage surveys have to generate cash flow. This means where I am with the cost, I will. Because the market is no longer growing, only one way possibly grow as well. I can steal market share from a competitor, hopefully one that is quite as well as I. If I hold market share, especially in a declining market, which happens generally in the phase, then that's just as good. Or what I might do, share of customer total dollars by a customer spend on a particular item. If I accessorize success, if I bring on something extra, then the consumer will spend that extra money. Total dollars spent, that will be an increase. Usually right now in the mature advertisements also are going to be affected to maintaining the product image, being able to try to attract you by coming up with product. So apply new technology, product line. Telephoto lens. Those are unique. Arm & Hammer life. Arm & Hammer basically started as somebody noticed that Arm & Hammer baking soda also useful. Great job. Odors. Arm & Hammer packages started to be seen. Have them now where you just start to see tooth. That is the great example of a product's been around. Continually find ways. One of the most iconic. The little girl in the Morton Salt. How many ways? Actually, when Salt came out, 14, that was actually a historical innovation because Salt did two things. One of them was it didn't clump up in moisture, and the other is that it was easy to use. So Morton Salt, when it came out, this little girl, she's holding the Morton Salt in her arm. What is interesting is it's raining, but the brand icon that goes along with it, the band, say is when it rained. That was. So this diagram basic method over history never changed. In modern art, so we have the little gold. very mature product. Last and final part is the decline. How do we go about giving birth good desirable products, make them essential too? This is what Nintendo as a corporation has been around a long time. They used to make games and started making computer software into the early 80s. Nintendo came along, they repositioned, created a new that the GameCube or any of the others didn't have. In essence, this application of technology refreshed the brand, took it from a decline, pushed it into the. So there are possibilities with Cadillac, with Not2 in the industry, so that you can refresh it and they are valuable. Doesn't mean you can do everything. Some things you gotta get done. However, products that can go. Oh, our Bostitch had a budget for Harvard's budget. Harvesting needs not need any. Has money past is harvesting, not just for harvesting basic gradual drawdown. Harvesting, you just cut it off. That's the difference. Obsolescence, by the way, obsolete. You hear the word obsolete, view, obsolete. Obsolete is when the product no longer has a value in use. Example is whalebone. Obsolescence, however, a perfectly functional machine, something have my Commodore old and I can still run. That is an example of obsolescence. Have to realize the difference. Obsolescence. So, what do I think or how do I find it? What are the considerations for getting rid of the product? But I still have a loyal customer. Got to know what Butterick is. Butterick company cutout pattern. Rhetoric as a market, as what has enough oil. The other is the market is maybe another competitor, we don't have enough of a market viable, but if my competitor abandons the product altogether, it's possible that we finally cost very little selling price of that. How fast is the market? If the market flatlines where there's nothing left, then of course you should divest yourself completely. But if the creation rate is we're finished with chapter 7. So 5 and 7 go together, segmentation targeting. Next week, Monday, when we come in, by the way, we'll talk about your cases. Many of you have